meeting with Premier Dwight Ball and the 4 Labrador MHAs. The group had a sit-down meeting recently to talk about some of the more controversial aspects of the provincial budget, and we reached Todd Russell by phone. Good morning, Todd.
Yes, hi Matt, how are you?
I'm well. Thanks for joining us this morning. I know you've had a sit-down with Premier Dwight Ball and with the 4 Labrador MHAs, and I want to ask you about that in a second, but I want to get your thoughts first on this backtracking of the deficit reduction levy.
Well, I mean, it's obviously a good thing. That was one of the issues that we had brought up with the Premier. We thought that the deficit levy was particularly egregious to the people of Labrador, and I can speak particularly to my people, particularly because they tied the deficit levy to the cost overruns and the extra expenses that are being incurred around Muskrat Falls. I said to the Premier, like I did on some other issues, that when you look at these types of measures, you have to look at them through the eyes of the people who are impacted. And in our community, and when it came to the levy, it meant that it was like salt into a wound. We are already suffering the impacts of Muskrat Falls through environmental degradation, to poisoning of water, and so little benefit was coming out of it for the people that I represent, that to put a levy in place was just adding salt to that very, very deep sore, that deep wound that we already feel. And so, yes, I'm happy it's gone. It should never have been there in the first place.
And that $50,000 cutoff, now people making less than $50,000 a year won't have to pay this levy. Is it fair to say that this encompasses a significant amount of the population in NunatuKavut?
I would say definitely. I seem to think that their numbers are that now only 1 in 4 will pay the levy. I would think that would be a bit higher for us in terms of percentage. I would say that probably 80% or more would not pay the levy now in terms of our population. So it is a good sign, and at the same time, we will continue to fight to have that levy removed from any of our people having to pay it. It is wrong in principle. It was ill thought out, and it must be reversed in its totality.
Are you surprised that they backtracked on it? Because you just had this sit-down meeting with 5 politicians here. Did you have a sense that this was coming?
Well, I mean, we talked very, we had a very frank, very open, and I used the word a very tough conversation. When I did bring up the levy, the conversation was, well, we're working on that. But no, I didn't know at the meeting that, in fact, it was going to come so soon. Like I say, it is a reprieve. It should never have been there in the first place. There are still people going to be impacted, and I speak for our people who are still going to be impacted by the levy, and it should be gone 100%.
Now, I know a significant part of that sit-down conversation was about Black Tickle and likely specifically about the elimination of the nursing position there. What happened with that?
Well, again, we said to the Premier, we said to the MHAs, and the MHAs from Labrador are certainly well-versed on the situation, that when you apply such measures in Labrador generally and in Indigenous communities specifically, these types of measures compound already difficult situations at times. And so in the case of Black Tickle, here's a community that has chronic illness. Here's a community that has no water and sewer. Here's a community with high unemployment and low incomes. Here's a community without a secure fuel supply. And now you add all of this in terms of the reduction in health services and the nursing position being eliminated. It is too much for a community to bear. And so we made that point as strongly and as profoundly as we could. We said to the Premier, there's no way in hell that these people should be denied their right to basic health services. And we demonstrated very clearly the cumulative impact that such a decision would have on the people and on this Indigenous community. And so I believe that message got through. I mean, I believe that the Premier understands now that their decisions should have been looked at through an Indigenous lens, through a Labrador lens, and in fact, some remedial measures will have to be taken.
Right, because it's one thing to understand and to hear what you're saying, and it's another thing to actually do something about that. Did you get an indication that they might be willing to rethink these decisions?
I believe that there is a willingness to rethink that particular decision and maybe some of the surrounding issues as well. That's my sense of where the meeting was at. There was no firm commitment to do that, but I get a real sense that they are open to ideas that would, of course, restore a sensible level of nursing or health services to that particular community. And so, our position has been that we don't want no lessening of the services. And Matt, I think it was very important for us to say as well, in the Labrador context, the provision of services are already so low that you can't cut the lowest of the low. And so, that point was made. And as you said, I agree with you 100%. It's one thing to understand it, it's another thing to act upon it. And I did get a sense that they were willing to look at some actions to remediate that situation.
What gave you that sense?
The sense was that the Premier said we can't have people impacted so negatively by certain of these decisions, that if there is additional information, I think we brought additional information to bear on the situation, then it deserves a rethink, as you would say.
So what happens now?
Well, we have decided to continue to work together, and in fact, the idea of putting together a special committee to particularly look at the community of Black Tickle and how we can move forward and try to deal with basically the crisis that has been caused in that community by the actions of this government and this budget. That's being looked at, and how that will be formed and what its mandate would be. That's an idea that we've put out there, and I think that could have a purpose in the sense that it could be a model to help deal with other issues that affect our communities and our people.
And this committee, is it people from NunatuKavut only, or does it include government officials, elected members?
The way we have envisioned it, and there was some talk about this some time ago, in fact, having a committee to deal with specifically the issues in Black Tickle, it would be comprised, from our view, people from the community itself, from NunatuKavut and from the provincial government. And if in fact, we can get the federal government to be a part of that, that would be great as well. And it would be with a view to, of course, dealing with the crisis situation that exists, but at the same time looking at community sustainability in the long term.
All right, Todd, we'll continue to follow this story, but we'll leave it there for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk and to let the people know about our particular dealings with the provincial government on very important issues.
That's NunatuKavut Community Council President Todd Russell. Love to hear your thoughts on this story or on anything you hear on Labrador Morning. Our number's here, 896-3509, or toll-free 1-888-699-8255.